Let us worship together in this collected space with one another. Our music this morning is provided by the talented and generous musicians throughout our denomination. This morning's prelude is Let Justice Roll Down, recorded and produced by Leah Morris. And our Zoom runner will now share her musical offering with us on screen.
Morally, I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society. And it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons, and I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
There is no freedom, the wise man said, let justice roll down when the poor cry out for shelter and bread. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down, roll down. Remember, our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let your love roll down like a mighty stream. When brutality threatens our daughters and sons, let peace roll down, roll down. May our voices rise up louder than the guns. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Step by step, one by one, let justice roll down, roll down. They can kill the prophet, but the dream lives on. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream.
I turned to it because
All right, thank you for sharing that. This morning, we would like to extend an especially warm welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time. We're so glad that you're here with us. Our greeter will be dropping our connection card into the chat box if you'd like to complete that and connect with our community. This caring and supportive community has a pastoral care committee who works closely with our minister to provide support, care, and a listening ear. Please fill out the pastoral care card being dropped in the chat box if you'd like to have our care team and/or Reverend Young reach out to you. There's also a link to this on our website. Our online services are intergenerational and we have a religious exploration program whose director, Rebecca Britt, is happy to hear from you. Her email is going to be dropped in the chat box now. There's a lot happening here at South Valley, and the Happenings weekly newsletter is a concise, up-to-the-minute way to stay connected. Lori Quigley's email is now in the chat box if you'd like to reach out to her to receive Happenings. We're also very active on Facebook and have an event calendar on our website. Another announcement, General Assembly is coming in late June, and we're looking for folks who wish to serve as a delegate for the business meetings that will be taking place there. General Assembly is all virtual this year, and it's a great opportunity to learn more about our faith as a whole. If you're interested in learning more, please see the article in Happenings and reach out to Reverend Laura. Full and partial scholarships are available for delegates. At this time, we're going to take a moment to share the warmth of community. You're going to be invited to unmute and say hello in our virtual space or greet one another in the chat box. After that time of greeting, we're going to light our communal chalice. So please unmute yourselves now and let the chaos ensue.
Good morning.
Good
Morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning.
I can see who else. Hi,
Yay.
Jen.
Good morning.
Morning.
A good morning.
Good morning, Christopher from the Avenues. I miss seeing your faces. Still here on the phone with no internet.
Hi, Peter.
Good morning.
All right. And with that, sorry about that. All right, let's take a moment now to light our chalices if you've got yours with you. And we invite you all to stand in body, mind, or spirit as we say our chalice lighting words, and you can use our actions if you'd like as well. So, we light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Featherstone, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees here at South Valley UU Society. My pronouns are she and her. Come, whoever you are. You are welcome here. No matter your age, your size, the color of your eyes, your hair, your skin, you are welcome here. No matter your gender, whom you love, how you speak, or whatever your abilities, you are welcome here. You are welcome here whether you come with laughter in your heart or tears in your eyes, you are welcome here. No matter what you've experienced in the past, no matter what awaits you in the future, you are welcome here. Whether you believe in God all of the time or some of the time or none of the time, you are welcome here. This is a community of open minds, loving hearts, and willing hands. You are welcome here at South Valley Unitarian Universalist Society.
It is so good to be together in this virtual online space with each and all of you. As we come into this time of worship, it is such a joy and a pleasure to welcome one of my dear friends from Santa Barbara, Justin, and his wife, Melanie, who is also in our gallery this week. I'm so glad to have Justin come join us here. He has been so busy in the time of COVID and in response to all of the social changes that are happening in our society. He has created a beautiful and wonderful podcast entitled Understanding Racism, and it is so compelling. And I have such deep respect for you, Justin, as my friend and as my co-conspirator on the front of melding politics and religion and social justice. And it is just a joy to have you with us here this morning.
It's so good to be here.
As we now settle into this and expand our time of worship with one another, our call to worship is written by Asia Monet and is entitled Say Her Name. And Asia Monet Basique is an American contemporary poet, writer, lyricist, and activist of Cuban-Jamaican descent from Brooklyn, New York. She is known to be the youngest poet to ever have become, and I'm probably not going to say this correct, the Nuyorican Poets Cafe Grand Slam champion. And she won that at age 18 in 2007 and is the last woman to have won that title since. So in a moment, I will play her poem because she, of course, speaks her poem and her truth so much more powerfully than I would in my privileged space as a white, able-bodied being. And so without further ado, I bring you the words of Asia Monet.
I am a woman carrying other women in my mouth. Behold, a sister, a daughter, a mother, dear friend, spirits demystified on my tongue. They gather to breathe and exhale, a dance with death we know is not the end. All these nameless bodies haunted by pellet wounds in their chests, listen for them in the saying of a name you cannot pronounce. Black and woman is a sort of magic you cannot hashtag. The mere weight of it, too vast to be held, we hold ourselves an inheritance felt between the hips, womb of soft darkness, portal of light. Watch them envy the revolution of our movement. How we break open to give life flow, while the terror of our tears, the torment of our taste, my rage is righteous, my love is righteous, my name be righteous. Hear what I am not here to say. We too have died. We know we are dying too. I am not here to say, look at me, how I died, so brutal a death. I deserve a name to fit all the horror in. I am here to tell you how if they mentioned me in their protests and their rallies, they would have to face their role in it too. My beauty too. I have died many times before the blow to the body. I have bled many months before the bullet to the flesh. We know the body is not the end. Call it what you will, but for all the handcuffed wrists of us, the shackled ankles of us, the bend over to make room for you of us, how dare we speak anything less than I love you? We who love just as loudly in the thunderous rain as when the sun shines golden on our skin and the world kisses us unapologetically. We be so beautiful when we be. How you gonna be free without me? Your freedom tied up with mine at the nappy edge of my soul, singing for all my sisters. Watch them stretch their arms in my voice, how they fly open-chested toward your ear. Listen for Rakia Boyd, Tanisha Anderson, Yvette Smith, Ayanna Jones, Kayla Moore, Shelley Frey, Miriam Carey, Kendra James, Alberta Spruill, Tarika Wilson, Cherise Francis, Chantel Davis, Melissa Williams, Darnisha Harris, Michelle Casso, Pearlie Golden, Katherine Johnston, Eleanor Bumpers, Natasha McKenna, Shaniqua Proctor. We will not vanish in the bated breath of our brothers. Show me a man willing to fight beside me, my hand in his, the color of courage. There is no mountaintop worth seeing without us. Meet me in the trenches where we lay our bodies down in the valley of a voice. Say her name.
Oh, shoot. Let me hold up. Zoom just makes everything so fun, doesn't it? Let's just take a moment just to let those names sit in our hearts. We have work to do as a people of faith. Our liberation surely is connected and intertwined with all of those whom we share this land with. It is often said that our hallelujahs are broken. And we sing with one another and we walk in solidarity with one another, not in spite of the brokenness, but as a way of walking each other home. Let us sing together from that place as we gather and sing our opening hymn, Now Let Us Sing. Let that music fill your heart and unfurl it further and deeper into our shared space.
If you see something that's wrong, raise your hand and say that's wrong. Point it out and name that thing by its name. Don't stand by and stare. If it's wrong, it's your affair. Don't be quiet, make a riot, be a pain. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. Ignore the crowd and go against the grain. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. When Rosa Parks sat on that bus, she chose to make a fuss. She chose to break the rules and take the blame. Her choice to sit and fight helped to bring on civil rights, because one strong woman chose to be a pain. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. If they say you have to move, say I'll remain. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. Harvey Milk chose to run for the council board and won, even though folks said you can't because you're gay. One brave LGBTQ elected leader ran and knew you can change things if you choose to be a pain. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. named Billie Jean told the world she had a dream that men and women would be paid the same. She refused to hit that ball till there was equal pay for all. She was a king because she was a royal pain. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. If they refuse to pay, refuse to play the game. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. Kids from Parkland led the fight for something they all knew was right. They said it's time for us to finally make a change. If adults can't compromise, we must go march for our lives. They spoke out and led the charge. They all were pains. Be a pain, shout about it and complain. When you're faced with laws you know are just insane. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain. Oh, be a pain, shout about it and complain. Ignore the crowd and go against the grain. Don't be polite, raise your voice and do what's right. Be a pain, be a pain, be a pain.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that video, Rebecca. That was outstanding. This community, our church, and its many ministries are only made possible by the gifts of your time, talent, and treasure. Many of you pledge monthly to support our work and South Valley's work of continuing to be a pain throughout Salt Lake County and beyond. You give your time, your talent, and your treasure, and for that we're grateful. Your gifts help ensure that we are able to live our values of love and justice in the world outside. Part of our ministry at South Valley includes sharing our Sunday worship offerings with a charitable organization that aligns with our principles and values. Your gifts today will support the work of South Valley and the Crossroads Urban Centers Emergency Fund. This fund is helping those struggling to meet rent and utility payments during these difficult economic times. Crossroads is a nonprofit, multi-faith, community-based economic justice organization that was established in 1966. It's a grassroots organization that assists low-income Utahns, those with disabilities, and people of color to meet basic survival needs and address essential issues affecting their stability and quality of life. Please give generously. And if you'd like, you can join me in saying our offertory words. We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together, we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts. And we'll now share our offertory music as well.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one.
For all that we have received and all we have found the courage to give, may we be truly grateful. May these gifts be a blessing for South Valley and for the Crossroads Urban Center. At this time, it is our custom in our shared community to speak of our joys and sorrows that have entered and are passing through our lives. You are invited, using the chat box, to name a personal joy or concern that is coming through your life that you would hope to speak into community so that we can hold it as you enter your comment token on our hearts. I invite you now just to join me in a time of reflection, meditation, and prayer. Spirit of life, we come to you this morning on the precipice of a threshold that we never thought we would have to cross, that threshold of a year of distance from one another. In so many ways, this has been a terrible threshold to cross. There have been too many deaths and too much suffering. And so much of that suffering has been unevenly distributed across our nation and our world, and we protest the unevenness of that. We come to the heart of the world and we lay down our protest that this shall not be, this cannot be the normal that we return to as we emerge from this. Spirit of life and heart of the world, we ask you to fill our hearts, our minds, and our bodies with that strong courage that emboldens us to be a pain and to cause good trouble in the world, so that justice is our true name that we are known by as a people. May those that are gathered here today find comfort in the spaces that they need comfort. And for those of us that need a helping hand to step forward into the light of courage and to take those good risks, may we find our brothers and our sisters and our siblings of faith right there beside us in this moment, inviting us forward to step into that light of kindness and justice. We are so grateful to be together as a community, and may that gratitude surround all of us in this space. Join me now in a time of quiet reflection and meditation.
Come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of living. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come. Come, come, whoever you are, condemned, worshipper, whoever you living, come is worshipper, lover is living, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, whoever you are, condemned, worshipper, whoever you living, ours is no caravan, lover is living. Come yet again, come.
Amen and blessed be.
I'm very excited now to share our My South Valley speaker. This speaker is coming from the household of Bubbles Emerson and Cami Hendricks. And I will share that now. Just give me one moment to share my screen.
My name is Veza, and I have been known to be a dog. I've been attending South Valley regularly for about a year now. Before this year, my moms have been going to South Valley for almost 5 years. That's half my lifetime. It makes me very happy that they finally decided to bring church to me instead of just telling me about it later. I love to sit in between my moms and listen to the speakers and the music. Couch church is so great. My favorite days at South Valley are always the blessing of the animals. I've been to every one since my mom's adopted me, And before we used to have couch church, they were my favorite Sundays ever. I love to drive in the car to church, smell all the amazing smells at the building, sit on the comfy blue chairs, and look for cats in the audience. I love the attention from the nice people who would pet me and the special blessing from the lady in the robe. She always smells nice. And even though I love couch church, I'm really excited to have another blessing of the animals in person soon. Hopefully, when I go, there will be a lot of new smells, like fresh pavement. I love to smell fresh pavement, or soap at hand washing stations. My moms donate some of the money they should use for doggy treats in their annual pledge, but I'm okay with that because we love our church, and the church needs that we pledge to pay for the building we like so much. The people who give services and help the church run, and even help buy the yummy smelling new pavement. Mommy says if you love something, you have to take care of it. That's why they take care of me so well. And that's why I take care of them too, by licking them all the time and protecting the house from strangers. We love our church, so we take care of it too, through pledging our time, talents, and treasure. I think every doggy listening should remind their parents to fill out their 3T card and make sure they make a new pledge for South Valley this year. See you next time. Another treat. Papa do a high five. Oh, okay. Zaza, high five. She cannot. She cannot. Oh, there she goes. Oh no, did you lose it? Another treat.
I love that. It's awesome. Very creative. Hey, everybody. How's it going? My name is Justin Avery. I am a worship leader and speaker and married ministry person here in Santa Barbara. And I have to say that it is an absolute honor to be speaking with you guys this morning. It's actually my first speaking engagement really on Zoom. So it's a little unsettling, so bear with me here. But I can't tell you how, as a Black man and as an educator, how meaningful it is to know that people, particularly white people, are listening and trying to learn as much as they can about our culture and what we've not necessarily been taught in our schools. You know, we're taught a lot of things in our country, but we're not necessarily taught how to think and how to discern the things that we experience. So, you know, my goal and what I do with my channel is I'm trying to help my friends and the people who are interested to develop clarity and perspective about racial issues. And my hope is that I can offer something to you to that end today. You know, it's really hard to talk about these issues sometimes with those that we love. And today I hope to help us understand just a little bit more about why that is and possibly how to navigate it in the future. So if a picture speaks 1,000 words, a real life situation must speak millions. I mean, you can have 10 different people describe one situation in 10 completely different ways. And it's possible that they'd be all telling the truth about the one situation with no contradictions. But when it comes to discussions on racism, multiple truths about that one topic doesn't seem to be viewed as a possibility, especially in the world of politics. You know, it's easy to get caught up with trying to figure out who's right, who's wrong, and you know, some things are obviously wrong, but but a lot of times we're all discovering critical pieces to the same puzzle. And, you know, systemic racism, it's a pretty complicated issue. It's a pretty contested issue at this point. But it shouldn't surprise us to hear that there are many truths that contribute to the solution. And when we look at it that way, it's a little easier to see that a topic as complex as that it actually needs a multi-dimensional perspective to even begin to understand it and to successfully address it. Admittedly, it's a challenge. And, but if you take a look at, a critical thinking class, or if you ever took something like that in college, there's this foundational teaching that says that you're expected to know your opposing views to whatever your premise is so well that you could persuasively argue their position for them. And I believe in that. I would add, though, when it comes to racism, that you shouldn't just know the arguments. If you want to address racism and potentially solve it, you actually have to understand the people themselves, the humanity behind the opposing positions that they take. The hope here is to discover not just what they're saying, but why they're saying it. You need to know why their ideas are meaningful to them. And as a Black person, you hear opposition to your existence all the time in just about every frontier of your life. But the cool thing is that Jesus said in Luke chapter 6, verse 45, he says, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Now, I'll say this really quick, that as I go through quotes and scriptures and things like that I'm using for my message, I'll be posting it here in the chat as well so that you can refer to what we're talking about. But he says, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. And if you're listening carefully, at least this is what I've learned, if you're listening carefully, you can make some really, really important observations. One of which I'd like to point out is a major stumbling block in the path to understanding racism. And but it seems to be common with every debater and every person who opposes this notion of systemic racism. It seems to be a common thing that comes up in their discourse. And if you listen closely, you'll find that most do not demonstrate a clear or correct definition of the term systemic racism itself. If we're going to solve anything at all, we have to be operating from the same crystal clear definition of the problem. The simplest problems are impossible to solve if everyone is, if everybody's got a different definition of the problem. So the good news is this, that history has already defined this topic in detail. We don't have to search for it. And this is what it comes down to. It's like an app, or it's like a computer program. Racism, or systemic racism, it's a system which can be defined like this. And I will post it here. There it is. It says, systemic racism is a set of component societal structures that's organized to achieve the goal of dominating financial, material, and intellectual resources for the sake of elevating one race of people over another. And in this case, in America, it's white supremacy. It's the systemic racism serves to produce white supremacy. It's now here's the interesting part about this, because we say this all the time in church. It's not hate. It's simply a collection of laws, policies, and norms that serve a very specific purpose. People might hate one another, but the system that they create to govern themselves is indifferent. It just does what it's designed to do. And the American system, some people say that it's a broken system. It's not a broken system. It was designed from the ground up to produce white superiority while oppressing people of color. And it will perform that task with astounding precision until it's instructed to do otherwise. And like any program, to understand how to operate within it, we need to be clear on some concepts of how it's functioning. And I'm going to bring up two concepts that I'm going to explain. One is science and another is morality. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So there are several methods of measuring and processing data in the scientific world. We have empirical studies, sociological studies, psychological studies, and environmental studies. So we're going to take a second to define those. Empirical studies are mathematically based research. And here's where we look at and we evaluate statistics. Then you've got sociological studies, which is the study of social groups and how they interact together in various conditions. Then there's psychological studies, where it's the study of kind of the individual mind. It talks about the individual behavior and how it's affected while it's experiencing the world around it. And then you have, lastly, environmental studies. And this is where we look at circumstances that might be beyond anybody's control, like the region one is born in or the socioeconomic conditions that they're navigating. These disciplines, they all instruct our perspectives regarding the outcomes that we see in society. It's critical to note that none of these disciplines on their own are capable of describing a real life circumstance in its entirety. Again, if a picture says 1,000 words, a real life situation says millions. And within that structure, there are a lot of relevant topics to describe any given situation. The separate scientific disciplines here, they collectively address all of the relevant content. So let me put it this way. This is hilarious, actually. I was given a plant for Christmas by one of my clients. I design clothes for a living. And I was given a beautiful plant. I don't know what it was called, but I knew I needed to water it. And so I did that. So for about 60 days, I was not supposed to water it every day, but I watered it, but it died a horrible, slow, gruesome death anyway. And, I was flawless though in my faithfulness to supply the water and the water that my plant needed. But the funny thing I learned is that my rightness on that one point, is irrelevant to my ignorance or my failure to consider or hold equal value the other aspects that keep a plant alive. It needed sunlight. It needed a peaceful environment to grow. It needed nutrients of which I provided none. So while I was feeling great about myself for doing what I knew, my plant was slowly dying. And so the lesson I learned here was that, there's more to a plant survival than the one thing I know about it. And each scientific discipline offers a perspective that only represents one criteria of many that are required to solve racism, much like that plant. And, they're individual pieces and they're meant to function in coordination with one another. So if you separate them or if you choose one while ignoring the others, you'll create a distorted and incomplete perspective, leading you to distorted and incomplete conclusions about it. Now, most of us favor one of these perspectives over another. And that's not wrong. It's just how we process information. It's how we think. We just need to be humble to the fact that if taken alone, our naturally favored perspectives will lead us to a non-reality if we don't seek to complete the whole picture by giving proper weight to the other perspectives. So again, they have to work together. Statistics, empirical data, empirical thinking, can be deceiving because they present a numerical truth. But what they don't represent is a complete reality, because a truthful context is not provided. And here's where the deception happens. When we get our hands on something that's verifiably true, like a statistic, we often mistakenly believe that that's all the truth there is. But there's clearly more to consider. It doesn't mean that the stat is wrong. It just means that it's not yet defined. And all those considerations, whether it's sociological, psychological, all those other perspectives, they have to be viewed as a whole. When we do life, for example, we don't just use one method of determining our way. We use many. As a parent, one would hope for the discernment that allows him to apply the right perspective to the right child, if you have multiple children, at the right moment to meet the need of the specific hour. And it's pretty easy to get wrong. For the empirical minded person, imagine using statistics to raise your teen daughter. Yeah, I cringe too at the thought, or imagine using psychology to decide what cereal box to buy, or using environmental circumstances to determine how much money you have in your bank account. See, it all sounds kind of silly, to be honest, but life wouldn't make sense if you couldn't discern between these perspectives. Empirical data is useless without the correct context. Sociology, psychology, environmental data, they are all what give its context to those numbers. Why is this important? Because when you are trying to discuss racism and you take only one of those perspectives, like empiricism, the stats, People will take that and they'll call that narrow sliver of information facts. And they ignore all the other information and then conclude whether racism even exists or not. Doing that kind of thing will never lead to accurate conclusions. And I'm not just picking on empiricism, I'm picking on all of them. You take any one of those things over the others, and that happens. You get this non-reality. So let's apply this to a real world situation that's happening today in society. The number of reported unarmed Black people killed by police in 2020 is 8 per million. The number of unarmed white people is 2 per million. Now, one cannot help but notice that 8 people out of 1 million is a pretty low number. 2 is even lower, of course. And the empiricist is likely to say that statistically, we live in a safe country where the odds are that you will not die as an unarmed citizen in the hands of the police. That is a statistical truth. However, human beings are affected by more than just numbers. Society doesn't function empirically. If it did, people wouldn't fear flying, or they wouldn't fear driving on the freeway or dying in their own bathrooms, because those statistics are higher. But yet here we are, people are afraid to fly. So you see, no human society functions like that. We function behaviorally. In other words, we're affected and we will respond to what people do more than how many times they do it. You see, we don't need more than one life-threatening situation to know that we should avoid that situation for the rest of our lives, right? You know, the actual number ratio of police killings in America is very low, the empiricist standpoint. But the pattern of behavior, the sociological standpoint, for that ratio, it says that police can kill 4 times the amount of Black people than they do white people, and historically have no accountability for doing so. Now, what do you think the psychological impact of knowing this information would be on that group of people? You see, statistics and empirical data lacks the ability to recognize the sociological and psychological impact of being an unarmed human being killed by someone who is assigned to protect you. It's not about the numerical ratio count, but the significance of the number itself. To an empirical mind, it would be nothing. While unfortunate, the numbers are not so bad compared to the overall police encounters, but the behavioral sciences would discover quickly that these events, as small in a number as they may be, as they may seem, are powerful enough to damage the public's trust in law enforcement. To know that you can be killed under false pretenses in this country with impunity by police, society will begin to vilify the police as an institution and possibly even riot. And we've seen that happen. Why? Because the wrongful number of deaths due to misbehavior in the police force don't need to outweigh the number of peaceful encounters that we have before we conclude that there's a problem that needs to be fixed. How many white cops kneeling on a Black man's neck for 8 minutes does it take before people are moved to action? Apparently, just one. And in the case of George Floyd, we only needed that one instance of that kind of behavior to determine that we don't want to be that kind of people. We don't even want to have that happen once. So we don't need a ratio that offsets this. So empirical data alone, and what I'm saying here is empirical data alone is not a good tool to determine if there's racism or if there's not. A strictly empirical focus will cause us to miss things like the character of our society and whether or not that's what we want to be. So what I'm seeing today in our national discourse is an inability or a rejection of using a multidisciplinary lens. Some people don't understand or can't understand or identify racism because they're only looking through one lens. So here's what I'm saying. If you are an empirical thinker, you should not be searching out more like-minded people to agree with you. You should be searching out the other disciplines to find out, not if you're right or wrong, but how your ideas function within or function in conjunction with the others. Because if what you think is true, it will function within the scope of the others. It'll have its place. And when these disciplines are balanced, we can be effective at solving systemic racism. So that is the scientific part of it. And now there's a morality aspect of this as well. And it may not make sense at first how this compares, but stick with me on this because it'll be clear in just a second. So I keep going back to biblical principles on this. So I appreciate your time if you're not, if you're not into that kind of thing. But I think we can agree on 2 points. One is that wisdom is important. And 2, our nation doesn't necessarily live by that. I think we can all agree at this point that that's not what's happening here. So our moral compass here in our nation tends to be based on material success. And so in the context of that discussion, wisdom can be defined, in the context of this discussion anyway, as the ability to use all of those disciplines and create a perspective that comes from all of them effectively, right? So if you don't have your Bible with you, I'm going to just quote a couple of scriptures here. Job chapter 34, verse 4, it says, "Let us discern for ourselves what is right. Let us learn together what is good." So allow me here to hone in on this word together. We all think with different perspectives, which is not a bad thing. However, this scripture suggests that wisdom is found by putting all of our ideas together and using them collectively. Knowing good and well that we're all so different, this is saying that we'll find wisdom if we knock our heads together, essentially. So the opposite side of wisdom is folly or foolishness. Remember how we said earlier that most of us, we naturally favor one of these scientific disciplines when we're trying to understand the world. And again, while it's natural to do that, a foolish person will only pay attention to and respond to his or her own perspective. They don't seek out the other perspectives on their own. This effectively cripples their understanding, limiting their vision to only what they can see in front of them. Ezekiel chapter 13, 2 and 3, it says, "Woe to the foolish prophets who only follow their own spirit and have seen nothing." The idea of foolishness here, is that the fool only values or reacts to what they can see with their own spirit. They aren't looking for anything outside of what their own perspective can see. And, in the Bible, they're known for making really, really poor choices because they don't consider what might be outside of their own worldview. And because of that, King Solomon says one of the most comedic and, in a sad way, the funniest scripture and my favorite scripture in the world, Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 1, it says, "Even as he walks along the road, the fool lacks sense and shows everyone how stupid he is." So the scripture is pretty clear, and we can see here how wisdom, or the ability to collect and effectively use the various perspectives, is important to apply when we evaluate our society and try to solve racism. Hopefully, I've been able to make the case here of why that's so important and convinced you to seek it. Now, finally, let's talk about politics just for a second here. So now that we're set on this journey to a more complete understanding of racism and how it functions, I have a warning for us. Nowhere do we see the disruption of this journey to understanding more than we do in politics. Why? Because the primary tool for successful politics is division. And I find the art of politics is generally to separate those 4 perspectives into mutually exclusive industries of thought and policy. In other words, they separate groups of people by teaching them that only one perspective can be right, hence left and right. They have identified the fact that we are all predisposed to think with one discipline over another. Again, not necessarily wrong, but it's just that whenever you hear someone talking in terms of left and right, they are artfully separating you into those groups so as to organize their own voting demographic block. And by doing this, they're creating groups that inherently have a distorted and incomplete evaluation of any given situation that they're trying to address. They need you to see only that which is in front of you and nothing else. They require a perspective from you that does not lend itself to discerning the other disciplines. In other words, In order for politicians to be successful, they need you to be unwise. When you hear them use words like narrative, propaganda, agenda, radical and extreme, alt-right, whenever you hear these words, they're trying to make you suspicious of other perspectives created by the other scientific disciplines. So why would they do that? Well, it's because, frankly, votes are their concern, not social issues. And it's easier to manipulate votes when you've got a group of people that you're dealing with that only has one perspective. I'm not here to judge their hearts for that. I'm only saying that if you do what they do and follow their direction, wisdom will fall out of your reach. And things like systemic racism will be impossible for you to understand and solve. Subscribing to that kind of political manipulation is to conform oneself to the biblical definition of foolishness. The sad news is that we as a country have become committed to a life and a society that relies on doing this. And our political leadership, it has a stake in keeping it that way. So here's the bottom line. Progressivism is not capable of solving racism in our country, and neither is conservatism or any other political mindset. The only thing capable of solving racism in our country or in the world or anywhere else is wisdom. That is the ability to evaluate a situation using multiple disciplines and then balance those perspectives into a logical path forward. And at this juncture, sadly, we don't have anybody in our national leadership who's actually doing that. But more importantly, the goal of this lecture is to teach my friends and anybody who's willing to listen is to seek wisdom over politics. We arrive at wisdom by first being humble to the fact that reality consists of more than just your way of thinking. And when you know that your way of looking at the world is but a tiny fraction of the whole picture, to the degree one is humble to that fact, he will be likely to seek out a more complete picture. And above all else, we have to understand that our predisposition to choose a side or isolate ourselves to one way of thinking, it forfeits our ability to use or discover wisdom. So please, my ask is this: don't forfeit your wisdom. So to understand racism in our society, it requires a combination of all of the scientific disciplines: empirical, psychological, sociological, and environmental data in order to construct a clear picture of our society. Our system is designed to keep that from happening. To actually solve our problems, we must together discover how all of these perspectives and systems work together and how they work within the same environment. This ability is literally defined in the Bible as wisdom, while the political route to solving wisdom is literally defined in the Bible as foolishness. So before we can get into any deep discussions about identifying or solving the problems of systemic racism, let's just make sure we're doing this one thing first. We're being wise. So that's my speech for today. For more information, you can feel free to go to my YouTube channel where I talk all about this. I talk about the different ways of understanding our history and understanding how we got here. The title to my YouTube channel is called How We Got Here, and it talks about from all the way back when the first slaves came over, and it goes into great detail. And I'm trying to foster a dialogue, because a lot of people have a lot of questions and need to work through this kind of stuff. And so I'm available for that. So I'm also posting my Facebook page here. So if you have questions, if you want to look this up on the text of what I'm speaking here, I'll also make that available to us. But if you have questions, I'm available for that, or discussions, you want to make a comment, or even help me or call me on something that I've said that was wrong. I'm open to that. I'm trying to create an environment here where we can actually work out these perspectives. So please definitely take advantage of that. What I'm doing right now is I'm sharing out the document of this sermon so that you can so that you can access this as well. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening. Again, it's been my absolute honor, and I definitely hope to be able to see you guys again.
I'm not sure how to follow up that mightiness. Your command, Justin, of the scripture is so humbling to me. And I'm so appreciative of you bringing that perspective this morning. Thank you. Thank you. Let's sing together as a way of closing out our space with one another. Our closing hymn this morning is Spirit of Life, and it is sung by all of you in the South Valley Choir. So our Zoom runner is going to start sharing that for us now.
All right, at this time, we're going to extinguish our communal chalice. If you'd like, you're invited to unmute yourselves and stand and say our chalice extinguishing words together. The words will be in the chat box if you'd like to follow along. We extinguish this chalice, but not the
warmth of community,
the light
of truth,
or the energy of action. We hold each other in our hearts until we meet
again.
And finally, our postlude this morning is We Will Not Stop Singing, written by the Chapin sisters, Lily and Abigail, arranged by Adam Pod, featuring the First Unitarian Brooklyn Choir with Dennis Weiss, Kiana Williams, Brandon Hornsby Selvin, and Candace Helfand Rogers.
We will not stop singing. We will not stop singing. We will not stop singing till the world can hear the song, till the world can sing along. We will not stop marching. We will not stop marching. We will not stop marching till the world can hear the song, till the world can sing along. Till the world can sing,
Thank you again to my dear friend Justin for your wisdom this morning. Our time of service begins as our chalice is extinguished. May we go forth from this place with a renewed sense of hope that there is a way forward and that this beautiful and broken world needs us and we need it. As you go forth now, be a blessing to one another and to those that you do not know. May you be a sound of joy that brings hope and light.